Welcome to Moving Iron with Casey Seymour and Greg Peterson, the podcast for anyone and everyone involved and interested in the business of ag equipment. If you want to understand what trends and market forces are impacting the price of your iron, you've come to the right place. Buckle up, it's time to move some iron.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast. This edition of the Moving Iron Podcast is brought to you by John Deere. I've got Greg Machinery Pete Peterson to talk about what's happening in the marketplace. Greg, how you doing today?
Yeah, pretty good. Greg Peterson, Machinery Pete. Hey, tongue twister. That's good. Fox and Socks. Have you seen that new video game, the viral video game where they have to say Fox, Socks, Rocks, Jocks, and they put it on the screen? Have you seen that?
No, I have not seen that.
Well, go to Instagram and just scroll a little bit, and it's hilarious. Okay. People, those tongue twisters, they just tie themselves up over it. But maybe we need a Machinery Pete version of that.
My tongue gets tied without any tongue twisters, so it doesn't really matter.
I'm with you.
Anyways, well, how you been, man, since last week we talked? You got some cold weather up there now still?
Actually a little warmer this week. We haven't had any snow for a while, so weatherman up here says it looks dry through the end of January, a little bit warmer, but not too bad. I did get down to Arkansas last week. That was fun. It was right in the northeast corner in Pocahontas. Mm-hmm. Our friend Kirk Witcher with Witcher Auctions has just an outstanding farm auction coming up on Thursday, the 22nd, so a week from Thursday. It's for Hill Farms. There's going to be some test the market items on that sale across the board. He's got a 23 model Steiger 470 quad track with 73 hours on it. He's got a never used 24 model Case IH 550T 40-foot air drill. Father and son operation there. Rocky.
Never been used? Never been used one time? Huh.
No, they were in, it was a father and son, Rocky and Seth Hill. I'll be posting the preview video. Great guys. They were in the rice business for about 10 years, and they're, of course, that's tough sledding there. So they're repositioning, focusing, investing more on the poultry and livestock side of their business. And they've been flooded out on the rice side. I didn't get to plant it all last year. And I think flooded out like 4 of the last 8 or something like that. They got 3 rivers running close there in northeast Arkansas. So a lot of this equipment they bought just didn't get the usage. But, they got a Shelbourne Reynolds RSD 32-foot stripper head, used 150 hours total. So just a lot of late model stuff.
Man,
so again, that's on the
stuff. Yeah.
On the 22nd. That'll be interesting. And it was fun to go hang out with Kirk Witcher. He's really growing his auction company down there. Kirk's a good guy and should be. I think that's an evening sale, like 6 p.m. online farm auction on the 22nd. So can have my dinner and watch auction prices.
There you go. Yeah, that is some low mileage stuff. You're talking about a Steiger tractor for 73 hours plus air drill with snow. I mean, I guess that makes sense now that you say. I'm like, how's a 23 model only have 73 hours on it? But if you've been flooded out 2 years in a row, it makes a lot of sense why it's only.
Well, there's a lot of restructuring out there. Moving out of certain areas, cotton or rice. Mm-hmm. And I'm no expert on following acreage and number of shifting out of things, but farmers just have to pivot. And that's just what Rocky and Seth said. We're just pivoting away from the rice side of things and, got all this stuff. But it is interesting at auction, Casey, when you see stuff like this, it's natural, human nature. You go, what the heck? Why is a 3-year-old Steiger 470 quad have 73 hours on it? And I just find it helpful in those cases to hear, Rocky or Seth in this case just say, well, here's the deal. And you can absorb it as you take it. No, it was not a forced deal at all. They're just pivoting. In fact, they're building new poultry facilities down there. So it's just, it kind of just is what it is.
Yep. Yeah. Diversification. It's always one of those things you kind of slide one way or the other, but
nice to be able to shift and diversify. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, there's been we were talking a little bit of back and forth here before we got started. You said you were watching some sales here and up in Indiana over the weekend.
Yeah, that was a really strong sale Saturday, Casey. It was in North Manchester, Indiana, which I admit I don't frankly know where that is in Indiana off the top of my head, but it was a sale for, I think the farm family was named Haupert, Haupert, Haupert Farms, retirement sale, and kind of a similar sale, late model, low-hour stuff. It was by Harmeyer Auction and Appraisal Company. Did a really good job promoting that sale. And a couple items that caught my eye, Casey, they had a 24 model John Deere S760 combine. It had 556 engine hours on it, 338 SEP, and sold for $385,000, which that's the thing with these used combines. It's interesting. You can look at it a lot of different ways, but from my angle, that's the second highest auction price ever on a S760. And interestingly, the only one higher was just barely higher, 389. And that was back in, get the right date for you here to be precise. It was mid-December of 23, Monroeville, Ohio. I think Merritt Auctions had that sale. That was a 22 model, but only had 151 engine hours. And again, this one Saturday had 556 at 385. But we've been talking about a number of down the stretch here in 25 quite a bit, early 26, about how the lack of new sales of 24, 5, and now 26 model stuff is starting to have some ramifications through the chain down in the used market. And I think proof of that here on a now just barely 2-year-old machine, which I realize, retail price on that was quite high. But again, I keep track of that stuff, but also deal in the hard cash checkbook reality world. And 385 was more than I thought it was going to bring.
If you go back and look at what that machine sold for new, and where it was at, that machine probably sold for, let me look here real quick. I can give you a pretty good guess.
It's going to be a big number.
It's a big number no matter what, but it was probably, I'm totally guessing here that it was somewhere probably in the high fours. I'm guess like 485-ish would be my guess.
I'm sure, yeah.
In that range, right? Today, a similar equivalent today is going to 625 to 675, depending on how you have it spec'd out, is what your sell price is going to be. But if you looked at where that machine sold for compared to a new one, now this is the thing where people get hung up on it, and I have this conversation with folks quite a bit. But oh my God, it looks that thing they're selling for a song. Like, yeah, oddly enough, it's the same percentage since I've been in this business for 25 years, right? It's been the same percentage within a few percentage points of each other of what 1 year depreciation is, 2 year depreciation, and so on and so forth. Now, obviously, you have some spike ups and spike downs depending on, what's if the economy is settling out or things are in a free fall or whatever it is. I mean, those widely vary. But when you're in a normal time where things are being solidifying and those kind of things, it's the same percentage. And if you do the math on this particular one and how it came out, you're about 35% roughly, give or take a couple of percentage points.
As the price of new has escalated so much, you're right. It's just the hit, the initial hit. That's a significant dollars. And I think that is why when I travel around, Casey, and go to auctions, and I've been out to a lot lately, it's very common to get people who come up to me and they'll, oftentimes verbalize it and say, Pete, wow, what a bloodbath on the sale. And I think what gets where their head is at is looking at that price of the new one, which, is certainly one data point. The reason I started doing this 36, almost and a half years ago, was to take out some of the gut level conjecture that we all used to have to make, whether you were on the dealer side, on the auction side, as a farmer. And so again, when that hard cash, write me a check today, $385, again, based on what I'd been seeing them bring, even though it was that 24 model with 556, that's more than I thought. And another interesting data point on combines from just that same day, Casey, this past Saturday, so 2 days ago as we're recording this. But our friend Bryant Roberson with Rich and Rich Auctioneers out in the Southeast in an online farm auction Saturday night. And that one was in Charles City, Virginia. And kind of the lead item on that sale was a 15 model S670, 2,402 engine hours on it, and about 102,000. And I thought, well, that sounds maybe a little higher than I thought. So I went and looked at our machine repeat auction price data, and it's really interesting. Last year in 25, the average auction price on an S670 was $85,462. Now in 24, that average on an S670 was $80,924. So when I tell people actually an S670 went up 5.6% at auction last year, I get stares like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
That's just what the numbers are. Now, behind that is the fact that how much they dropped like a rock in 23 and 4. In 23, they fell 23.7% hard cash auction, followed by 24, they fell 19.8%. So, but again, there's that solidifying we've been talking about for quite a while now. So this, that's a 10-year-old, 11-year-old combine. And that S600 series made from 12 to 17. So give or take either side, 10 years, it's firming up. And again, that just sold Saturday. So.
Yeah. I talked a lot about this during COVID, that there was a quote unquote scarcity premium that got put on machinery. And I saw that anywhere between 25 to 30% to 50 to 60%, depending on what the platform was. Right. And you're talking about, a fall off in 23 of 23.9% or whatever you said it was.
23.7. Yep.
23.7, then 19 and some change in 24. If you do the math on that, that's 52%
that's a lot
that came off. And it's what drove the marketplace of COVID was supply and demand, right? There was a total lack of supply and a lot of demand, right? And then you had all the supply hit at one time, and there was not the demand. Actually, the demand probably didn't really change for a lot of things, but it just the amount of supply that was out there and what it was driving that. And then again, so you had this big decrease in value, but it's a tough conversation to have with somebody when you're sitting there talking about, hey, you know what, I'm going to take this auction and then, get 65 cents on the dollar. Well, I hear you, but that in today's marketplace, those numbers are what you would expect to see happen on a 2-year-old machine with those kind of hours. It's not as far as a percentage of new goes, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the difference about that, Pete, is that we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars and not tens of thousands of dollars. And that's the big pain point out there right now. And should those numbers change and should those numbers think, I don't think they will ever change, because the reason for that is to get a used buyer interested in that piece of equipment, that's where it is. I think we've established it pretty well in the marketplace what the top end of that spectrum looks like. And for all these different kinds of pieces of equipment, whether we're talking, class 10, 11 combines, whether we're talking 300-400 hour row crop tractors, or whether we're talking 4-wheel drives in that, 500-600 hour range, whatever, or 600 horsepower range. If you go back and look at 22, 23, 24, 20, and where we're at now in 25, if you look where they're at, you've kind of established what those ceilings are for those machines and where that's going to be at. So if you're doing your research on this and you're taking a look at, hey, I'm going to take some stuff to auction, or hey, I'm going to have an auction, I love auctioneers to death. I think they're the best people on the planet. They're good-hearted people, but they're a lot like seed reps. If you grow my corn, I'm going to get you 2 extra bushel an acre, right? There's some of that goes into there, but every one of those auction companies have a record they can show you of past sales of what things look like. So to do your homework, do your due diligence, take a look at those sales and see what it is. So not because you're going to go out and try to find who's going to do best, because it's what it is that day, right? It could be a good day, it could be a bad day. You could have an auction today when the USDA decided, oh, guess what? We actually have more corn than we thought. I don't know how that happened, but it drives the price down. So it's going to jack with your auction values. At the end of the day, when you're looking at who you're going to do your sale with, spend some time going through what their past 6 sales been on the equipment that you have that you're going to be selling, and take a look at those things and see what how consistent those prices are at each one of those sales, because it's going to paint a picture of who you want to do business with. And I think that's the most important thing about looking at auction values right now is, what auction company am I going to use based around their performance? Just like anything else that you look at in the farming operation, you're going to use based around their performance.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about it before, but what is the auction company doing, or what are they not doing? I mean, obviously internet bidding is huge, and that takes care of a lot of it, but there was a reason I was in Pocahontas, Arkansas on last Thursday. And, Kirk Witcher and those 2 brothers, father and son, that were having the sale, they wanted me there. because I think when you put it in voice, like I like standing there with my iPhone and saying, Seth, why does your 470 quad have 73 hours on it? And then Seth will explain, well, we're getting out of rice and stuff. Again, it's personal. And I do find, I get hit with this as I go all over the country. And again, I understand where it comes from, this big gap between new and used. But if we dive deeper on those S670s, that's really interesting because we talked about how much they fell 23 and 4. They bumped up a little bit so far, well, in 25. And our friend Bryant just sold that 15 model Saturday night for 102, which I thought was pretty good. The current average dealer advertised price on an S670 is $111,980. And so my machine repeat ratio, average auction price versus average dealer ad price, 76.3%. So 26 years ago, when I started compiling average dealer ad price on 2-year-old stuff, 20-year-old stuff, 71 to 76 is right in the stable window. Mm-hmm. And so when we've been talking about stabilizing this last year, that's proof of it right there. And it's, again, I just encourage people to really plug into these trends and be aware of them. Even as you're talking to your lender, it's just so dangerous to go off of a kind of a gut level, things are down in the dumps or things are, how much are we talking about? So you got to be specific. And that's hopefully what our data has helped people get a handle on over the last 36 years.
Yeah. And just like what you laid out right there, when those machines get to that level of age, right, and you start looking at where things are at retail-wise versus auction price, they're always really close. You're within, in that particular instance, you're within, $9,000 of what the retail asking price is, right? So if you go to the dealership and start wheeling and dealing and doing those kind of things, you're probably going to get pretty close to that 102 mark, right? I mean, you're going to get close to it after you start looking at this, that, and the other thing. You're going to be within a reasonable time frame of that. Now, people still saying, well, you're still 76% of what it is. Yeah, that's right. There is.
The market is really never wrong. No. It just is what it is on a certain day, whether you're talking land values or used machinery. We don't have to like it, but boy, you better be aware of it. And it's, again, I found it interesting that these two sales Saturday, Casey, because here we are approaching mid-January. So now we've stripped out to whatever extent you think there was, or I might think there was froth in the market in December, which I think there was. There's no year-end tax buyers last Saturday. They're just looking for that right machine, whether it's a 10-year-old combine in Charles City, Virginia, or the 2-year-old one in North Manchester, Indiana. And again, it's just looking more clear to me that I'm not saying we're anywhere near 21 and 2 in terms of used inventory record tight levels, but it's so much tighter than it was, say, 2 years ago at the start of 24. And you track that more than anybody, volume of late model units on the market. And I think it's starting. That's why I think that S760 went as high as 385 on Saturday.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you take a look at where things are at, the fastest growing, what you would expect to see this, but it's growing really slow, right? And it's not really going to grow much more than what it is. It's that 1 and 2 year old the 1-year-old equipment. 2-year-old stuff, you're seeing a lot of activity in 2-year-old stuff, and you're seeing even more activity in the 3 to 5-year-old stuff, especially at the end of the year, right? What you would expect, I would expect to see that to happen, right? If I was looking at who's going to come and buy something right now, where that 2 to 5-year-old stuff sets, that's going to hit a lot of sweet spots for a lot of people, right? That are coming into the market to upgrade to something newer than what they have. Right. But if you go back and look at basically the 6-year-old stuff that's and older, so 6 to 10-year-old stuff, and then 11 and older stuff. If you really start to break those numbers down and start to look, they grew a little bit over the time. But you would expect that because those are the trade-ins that came in on the guys buying that 2 to 5 year old stuff, and you expect to see it happen. What I'm anticipating and really looking forward to, Greg, is how much does that kind of back to the conversations you've had with some other folks around the country, when you start looking at the auction stuff, how much does that 6-year-old and older stuff start to really work its way into the auction marketplace? And how fast do you see that to start doing maybe even some upward, quote unquote, appreciation of equipment on that 3 to 5-year-old stuff?
Well, we're going to have a good test on that sale I mentioned on the 22nd, Casey, down in Arkansas, Pocahontas. Mm-hmm. So they've got, we talked about the tractors, but they've got a 19 model Case 8250, 542 SEP hours on it. So if you're in the market for that 5-ish year old tractor combine, here's one with, now again, you could look and say, I'm in Minnesota. So historically people used to say, well, Arkansas is pretty far south. You know, it's south of here. It's a rice machine, had the chrome package on it, whatever. You can hear the owners talk about it. It's only got 542 SEP hours. So we'll see on Thursday, the 22nd in the evening, what a 7-year-old 8250 with hardly any hours on it is worth. That's the beauty and the power and the brutal honesty of the auction market at work. It's going to bring what it's going to bring. Sometimes they trend up, and like we documented in 24 and back in 14, 15, you know, it felt like a rock. So, you know, we shall see.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to watch the rice machine sell and what it brings. And that's going to be interesting to watch because, I mean, if you're looking for a machine that's got, you know, extended wear packages on it, this has got the king of extended wear packages on it. And rice machines are notorious for the amount of stuff that they have to run through them and what that looks like. So this will be, and really, for a 19 model machine, again, like you talked about earlier, Greg, I mean, here's a producer that hasn't been able to farm that particular crop since, you know, for 2-3 years now. So, you know, that's, again, you got a 2019 machine with 500 hours on it, 500 separator hours on it. You've got an opportunity to get a good quality machine that should have, you know, close to 1,000 hours on it at this particular point in time.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And some other interesting data points last week, Casey. I mean, again, the pre-def stuff is continuing to do what it's doing. We saw an 05 8320 that Big Iron sold. I think it was out of Brockton, Illinois last Wednesday. The guy's name was Larry Updegraff. I think it was his online farm retirement auction. Low hours for an 05, 20 plus years old now, 2,267 hours. You expect there to be a premium, and it brought 134. So again, when you don't let it be the chance, like how high is that? Well, that's the highest in 23 months hard cash auction. Right. And I made a note on AgriTalk this morning. I was looking at that. I was using our machine repeat auction price auction search tools, filters, and it's the 13th highest auction price ever over 2,200 hours on an 8320. But all 12 that sold higher sold from March of 22 to January of 24. So that little window when the market was on fire at 22, early at mid 23, that's when all the highest 8320 sold at auction. Back to your supply and demand, you know, back in that coming out of COVID, that supply chain mess. You know, so looking backwards now, you can kind of see, and this is why I wrote about this in 24. If you were looking to buy on the used market, that was the time to be really aggressive. Maybe in the first half of 25. Now it's starting to tighten up a little bit. We'll see what happens from here, but I think that's the value of keeping tabs on this data, because you can get a sense for, okay, I got to pull back. This is getting too hot, or I should dive in because this stuff is softened up enough. So,
yeah.
One other interesting stat. I'll get your take on this one, Casey. Curious, but I was reading Minneapolis paper. I'm still a physical paper guy. That's how old I am. I like to get the paper. Our two daughters say, "Why are you reading 30 pages of the internet, Dad? That's stupid." But anyway, I'm reading the paper and I read this story that says the average age of vehicles on the U.S. roads is now 12.8 years old. And that's a record age of vehicles. Now, I don't track that stuff, but I read that and I went, that's a lot what you and I have been talking about the last 6-9 months, is people stretching out the life of their used farm equipment lines because times are challenging. And it's also tied to the fact that the price of a new vehicle is like, oh my God, it's like $110,000 for a pickup. That's nuts. Yeah. Or $800,000 for a new combine. That's pretty high. And so that will make you drive your car longer or drive your 10-year-old tractor longer. So just curious on your take on that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've been looking for a car for my wife for, I'm always looking, right? So where's the deal at out there? But there's some of these. If you just look at a basic, I'm just SUV, you pick the, whether you're looking at a Ford, a GM, or whatever it is you're looking at, right? A full size SUV, you're going to be spending $65,000 just to get the four wheels and the windows. I mean, that's
Isn't that crazy?
Like I told a guy one day, I was down there looking at a car. I was like, I don't want to drive it. I don't want to live in it. So I don't know where this one was like, it was $100,000 thing. It was,
Right.
It's not like an Escalade or anything like that. It was just a well-equipped car, and I was looking at that going like, man, that's, you start doing the math on that in your head and you just divide by 72 and then you come up real quick with $1,000+ a month payment. And I'm thinking to myself, at what point in time does that? But then you go look at a used one that's got 40,000 miles on it, 50,000 miles on it, and it's not that much cheaper than the new one is, right? So,
well, that gets interesting there because we might see ramifications with new farm equipment sales here because we've just been seeing November, December used, like I said, that S760, 385, whatever you think of it, that was higher than I guess it would go for because things are trending up, hard cash. So at what point, if that continued for a while, and I remember writing about this in 22 and 3, it's like, you know what, the play is just to buy new. Get your warranty, and yeah, it's high, but then just like you said, if used is getting that high, that does tilt it back towards at least considering, whether it's leasing, whatever. So it's kind of fascinating, to track this stuff.
Really,
I think we might have also further defined the K-shaped economy, Casey, because on the one hand, oldest fleet of vehicles ever on U.S. roads. So people stretching out how long they own their cars, but sales of new vehicles have gone up. So that tells you the people on the top part of the K are flush. They're doing well. They're spending money. They can drop $100K on that, whatever. And if you're on the other part of that K, it's Katie bar the door, buckle down, and hold on with white knuckles to what you got. And that's not fun.
Yeah. Kind of makes you wonder how much of that stuff falls under a leasing strategy comparatively to a retail note purchase style thing on that side, because again, on the one of the big driving factors more in any of this, it's interest rates, right? Yeah. And that's what's driving this, right? So I mean, you can look at $200,000-$400,000 stuff back pre-COVID, and bet you're getting a 2.9% interest rate, and now now today you're doing that same thing on essentially double the price, and you're tripling the interest rate, right? So that's 2.5 times interest rate or whatever it might be, and that again goes back to even at 0%. But you're also seeing some manufacturers roll out. If you look at new stuff, there's a lot of 0 for 24. There's some 2.9 for 48 and those kind of things. There's some things out there that you can take advantage of. But again, it's you got to associate that stuff back to what's that payment look like on the backside of that? And that's gonna, it's just like cars, right? Just like you're talking about on the car side of it. Well, you're gonna have plenty of people that are saying like, hey, that's just, I got to keep doing what I'm doing.
That's really interesting. If you want confirmation of what you just said, go back to our Twitter feed, Machinery Pete, and find that post I made Saturday morning when I read that. And I just posted 8. Average age of U.S. fleet of vehicles on the road, 12.8, all-time record high. Look at the comments. Some of it pertains to the price of new is a joke. I don't want to pay that. Some of it is like the new stuff. I don't like it as much as the older, simpler stuff. But then there's like the whole payment factor. You're saying, well, so it's just all across the broad spectrum. People are chiming in with their take on it. But it's all based around accurate data, which again, that's the thing that I like to cement the conversation on is, okay, what are we talking about here? And I just think on our farm equipment end of things, the used market, again, it surprised me when it started to solidify so quickly last year, back in February, and that it held all year. And it surprised me when it went up a little bit in November, December, and it surprised me some of these early first big test cases in January have been so strong. But again, the market is not wrong. It's just reflecting all the mix of factors we're talking about.
Right. Yep. Sun's in miles here. Yeah, they've got one of the things that I think is going to happen is just that it's just going to. That's why I don't think there's going to be on the top end of the funnel on the equipment side of the business, on the used equipment side of it, that there's going to be a real like, oh my God, we don't have very much. We got to figure this out thing because of the price that's going to drive that. The flip side of that is the stuff that's underneath that's 3 to anywhere from 2 to 6 years old, depending on what it is and how the hours and those kind of things are going to make a big difference. But in condition, those kind of things. But that's where you're going to see a bottleneck in the funnel that's going to cause a lot of what you've been talking about. Some of these elevated auction prices that you're seeing that are surprising you on some of this older stuff, because in a lot of cases that's kind of your choice if you're looking at upgrading some stuff, just because of where financially where the position that you're in. Some of these machines are going to be what you have to pick from if you want to upgrade your stuff.
Yeah, if you can find the widest point of that supply side, whatever model year, and I've always written the auction data that for 36 years tracking it. We talk about it a lot, Casey, but that kind of I say 3 to 7 year old is really a great value place to land if you're buying on the farmer side, because that big depreciation bump we talked about, the 1, 2, 3 year old stuff. But then again, just like that S670 is sold in Virginia Saturday night at 102 hard cash, that's solidifying and holding. And so get yourself into that 3 to 7 year old spot with the nicest, lowest hour stuff you can get. Call your dealer. There's good stuff on a lot. There's plenty at auction, for sale, private, whatever. But that's still a good value play in my book. And then if you get to be 10 years old and still have low hours on it, you're going to be in a really strong place, whether you want to trade that or sell it outright or have an auction, call me and have an auction.
Yeah, for sure. I think that'll continue to drive the marketplace into a bigger concept as things move around and keep things moving forward. So interesting thing to watch. We have no lack of stuff to talk about here in 26, just like in the past. So we'll have keep everybody up to date on where we see the market headed, in our opinion, what we see happen. So let's keep things pushing forward. So.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, thanks for stirring the conversation all these weeks, Casey. And I'm glad to see the sun is shining out there in Scottsbluff today.
Yeah, it's for a change. Yeah, it's typically a little cloudier here late, but it's sunny today for sure. For sure. Well, Greg, I got to ask you this. I got to get your take on this. You got Miami or Indiana on Monday?
Oh, well, I am a Big Ten boy, Minnesotan. Right. So our Gophers haven't been to what used to be the Rose Bowl since '62. So our dad taught us once the Gophers were out, cheer for the Big Ten. And it is cool to see Indiana do what they've been doing. And I'm so old, Casey, I remember the last undefeated college basketball national champion was the University of Indiana 50 years ago exactly, March of '76. Yeah. So how cool if the Hoosiers now can do it on the football side. Yeah. And I know that's getting into paying players and stuff like that. It's kind of wild, but it is pretty cool to see the University of Indiana just come out and beat the tar out of some traditional powers. It shows you what's possible, I guess.
Yeah. So as a child of the 80s, I would love to see the U back.
Are you a Hurricane guy?
Growing up, just watching those games, it was always a great time. But at the same time, I'm just like you know what I mean? It's like, I'd love to see. You have two stories here, right? You had Miami that's been kind of struggling to get things rolling since the early 2000s, and here they have an opportunity to do that. And Indiana is just like, it shows you what if you do the NIL thing and the portal, right? It's
if you have Mark Cuban as an alumnus, you can do some things.
You can do some things, right? It shows you too. You don't have to have a bunch of 5 stars to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a couple of Miami references that might make you smile. Now, one, we got to shout out to our Nebraska viewers. We have tons of viewers. Well, you're in Nebraska. So if you're old like me, you remember New Year's night in 1984. So the end of the '83 season. University of Nebraska. That was the Kendall Gill, Mike Rozier, Turner Gill juggernaut. They came up to Minnesota and beat our Gophers in the Dome 84-13. They were unbeaten. Get to the Rose Bowl. They're playing University of Miami, who at the time was an upstart. Bernie Kosar was the quarterback. They're like, who are these guys? And, of course, Miami was awesome. They wound up winning the game. And if you want a really old University of Miami reference, my all-time favorite Minnesota Viking player was Chuck Foreman, running back in the 70s. He graduated from Miami in 1972. First-round pick of the Vikings, and number 44 is my all-time favorite.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. It's going to be a really good game,
Should be.
I thought Oregon and Indiana was going to be a good game too, but it turned out not to be so well. So
I saw that this is Indiana. Indiana's defense was so amazing. I'm starting to read things on the internet where opposing players, I suppose it's just the age we live in, but people are starting to say they must know our signals. And it's like, I think they're just kicking the living tar out of you. I don't know how they're doing it, but hats off to them for what they're doing. It's pretty incredible to watch.
I read something already about on the internet, an article this morning about how Indiana is under investigation for cheating for having such a perfect season. I'm like, seriously?
Jealousy is a human emotion.
I tell you
hopefully it'll be a great game. What day is the finals? I'm not even sure.
Monday night.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
that'll be it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. And then I gotta go 1985 Super Bowl all over again. Bears Patriots.
Oh, we have a number of devout Bears fans on our Machinery Pete sales team, and they were texting us the night of the Green Bay game. And wow, I think they were still partying in Chicago. That was quite a finish.
Half the town had to get shocked back to life after the first half. You know what I mean? So we'll see. We'll see what happens, Greg. It'll be
fun.
All right, Greg. Well, Greg, folks want to reach out to you. Easiest way to do that, just go to Machinery Pete's website or check you out on all your different social media sites.
Exactly. Just reach out, folks. Love to talk and catch up. And it's Facebook, Twitter, machinerypete.com. You know where to find me.
Right on. Well, Greg, we appreciate you being on. We'll catch you again next week.
Sounds great, brother.
All right, stay tuned for more Moving Iron podcast after these lessons.
Looking for more accuracy, more productivity from your current planter? Let's get exact with precision upgrades from John Deere. Start with Exact Emerge and get accurate singulation and spacing at 10 miles per hour. Or choose Exact Shot to promote early root growth and cut fertilizer costs. And with Furrow Vision, save time by verifying seed depth right from your cab. Visit johndeere.com/planner upgrades and see why nothing runs like a deer.
All right, welcome back to Moving Iron Podcast. Got Sean Hackett back on to talk about what's happening in the marketplace. Sean is with Hackett Financial out of Boca Raton, Florida. And I wanted to get Sean's on here. So we're recording this on Monday. This USDA report came out. The January WASDE came out. Just talked about spending stocks, what have you. And it was not that anyone's asking my opinion, but it wasn't what I was expecting to see happen. And according to the marketplace, it wasn't what they were expecting to see happen either.
Well, I think it's like weather models, right? I think anyone can look at the history of weather models, whether it's the GFS or the Euro, and know that they're maybe 20% accurate on a 2-week forecast. Yet when they say something, somehow the market believes that the models know best and they trade them. Even though their track record is so bad, they still trade the weather models, and they still do it to this day. USDA is no different. Whether we're talking about coffee, whether we're talking about sugar, corn, cotton, if you look at the history of USDA reports and their estimates and what actually turn out to be the true production numbers, their accuracy is very, very poor, like not even close to being accurate. Yet somehow, just because it's the government, the market just says, well, if they say it, then it must be true. And unfortunately, until we break the shackles of that ridiculous orientation that we should believe entities and models that have such a poor track record of predicting whatever they're supposed to be predicting, until we stop trading that, we are subject to very, very inefficient markets, and markets that for a little while will go, significantly against the true nature of the fundamentals. This is not the first time we've had a bogus USDA report. I mean, this happens all the time. And they always find a way to correct it over time. Historically, when they've made a mistake like they've clearly made, they'll first correct it in the quarterly grain stocks report, in the March report, and in the June report. Those are the next two quarterly grain stocks. They'll just somehow say, we just can't find all those bushels. It must be that demand is stronger than we thought, and the residual stronger than we thought, and they put their hand on the Ouija board and come up with a dramatic change of events. The problem is this: getting the number right in June is very, very different than getting the number right in January. Yep. Getting the number right in January means for upper $4 corn. I don't know what it means getting it in June, because so many other factors will now be part of the corn market at that time. We'll have South American weather on corn. We'll have the planting season on corn. We'll have the initial stages of June weather in the growing cycle. We'll have whatever new geopolitics we have. The problem is, by the time they get to the right number, the market is so far removed from it that they're just focused on something else. And I'm not saying it's not a factor. It just is not as important a factor as it would be if they came out with what I believe to be a more appropriate number today. And so the problem with that is that farmers have to sell. We know they have to sell. They periodically have to sell. They have to raise cash. They have to pay their bills. They have to pay their bankers. And, you can only go so long without selling before it's like, I just kind of got to sell. And after a day like today, where the USDA, comes out with what they did and the price does what it did, a lot of farmers are going to sell today and tomorrow and maybe over the next week. This is what happens. You get a bunch of cheap corn that gets flooded into the market because the farmer is scared to death, understandably so, by the way. And he says, I can't stomach any more decline from a price it was already not profitable before. Now it's really, really unprofitable. And so the end user just buys a bunch of cheap corn, and then all of a sudden they tell everybody that it's not so bad. And it's not so good, and it's not, and things are not as good as we thought. And all of a sudden the weather is this, and then you find yourself back at 480 corn, but the farmer's already sold at 420 corn, or, and that's the insidiousness of this type of give and take that we see repeatedly. And as I said, it's not just the grain markets, that we see this. We see this in a bunch of other markets that the USDA puts numbers out for. And it's really unfortunate. The other problem with the USDA is sometimes they do tell the truth. They do every once in a while. Sometimes they do. Last year in January, they did. They did tell the truth, and the market took off. So that's the problem. The problem is, are they in the mood of telling the truth, or are they not in the mood of telling the truth? So there's two forecasts, Casey. There's the forecast of what is the USDA going to say, and this forecast of what's actually true. Now, those that gamble on correctly ascertaining the USDA report got a 50-50 chance of being right. Anytime you're going to be, hey, it's going to be good, it's going to be bad. Well, half the people are going to get it right and half the people are going to get it wrong if you're just flipping a coin, right? So those that get the USDA report right are revered as soothsayers. They understand what's going on in the country's line. No, they just either got super lucky or they just happen to game the system of how the USDA was going to operate in this particular growing season. What I've always believed is the correct thing to do is I don't really believe anybody can correctly predict what the USDA is going to say, given that they are so much of a chameleon in terms of sometimes they tell the truth, sometimes they don't tell the truth. Trying to predict that kind of inconsistency to me is not something I'm interested in. I always have a pretty good idea of what the truth is. And if they happen to say something significantly against what the actual true fundamental picture really is, and the market does something stupid like it did today and it may do it tomorrow, there's an opportunity. That's how I've always felt is the best way for the farmer, for the end user, for those in agriculture, is not to try to predict a report that can't be predicted. Tell me anybody that accurately predicts every USDA report every year. It does not exist, Casey. There is nobody that says, I have a 95% track record of predicting USDA. They don't exist. Half of the time they get it right. So we stopped doing it because we're going to get it right half the time. We're going to get it wrong half the time because that's the nature of the beast. So more importantly, do you actually know what the true nature of the fundamentals are? Do you have an ability historically, statistically, cyclically to know or have a really good idea of what the truth actually is, so that if the USDA pulls a fast one and if the markets do something against the direction of the true trend, you can advise your customers correctly. And I believe this is one of those times where I don't think there's any doubt in my mind in our work, based upon the weather that took place, the evidence of the harvest results that in our network. And today we shared a network of a totally independent source of somebody who's really, really sharp, who's looking at 8,900 different plots across the entire grain belt that did the same thing last year, saying the crop is worse than last year. Some very, very serious people, put some significant granularity to what this crop's going to be. And just because the USDA decided they're going to say 186.5 has nothing to do with that being the truth. What it does mean is that speculative traders who are taught to trade headlines and sell thousands and thousands of contracts in a blink of an eye based upon headlines, which they're free to do, by the way. They're allowed to do this. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with speculators doing whatever they think they need to do on a short-term basis. But it doesn't mean that they're validating the report. Doesn't mean they're validating the USDA. They're just trading what they think is a short-term opportunity to profit. And I would argue that those on the other side, those involved more what I believe in the actual physical farming business, can do the exact same thing. They're free to trade that on the negative side. We're free to take advantage of their short-sightedness and look at the longer-term picture that they're just trading a number that's actually quite incorrect. And so that's where that's where I believe we are. We try to utilize, Casey, something called linear regression analysis. It's a simple statistical tool that puts layers of supports and resistance levels based upon a time frame that you select. And we try to select a 10-year window, meaning how do prices tend to trade over a 10-year window? Usually over any 10-year period, Casey, you've seen inflation, you've seen deflation, you've seen a good economy, you've seen a bad economy, you've seen a black swan event, you've seen big crops, small crops, droughts, floods, perfect weather. You've kind of seen it all. And so there's a rhythm to the market. And so when we do that analysis on March corn and May corn, on a monthly and on a quarterly basis, I always love when we can get multiple time frames that are giving us similar levels. 410 May corn, 410 March corn is extreme support on a linear regression 10-year basis. And if we're able to, I think today we closed around 421, I think, on the market, something like that. But if we're the way what we're suggesting is that if we're able to trade down to that 410 area in the next few days, which if you're going to get any more momentum, usually the way this works, Casey, they sell, they sell, they sell. They tend to have 3 days of selling, and then whatever they've done, they're done, right? So if we're going to see this 410 area, give or take, probably going to see it next couple of days, or we're not going to see it at all. And but if we don't see it at all, that's extremely interesting information. If we do see it, that's extremely interesting information, because you can, to me, that's where, like, if you need to buy physical corn as a livestock producer or as an ethanol producer, to me, you've been given this last ditch negative bearish piece of information, the last negative catalyst that the market can trade for probably quite some time. Everybody who was hanging on for dear life probably will sell today if they haven't already done so, or will sell tomorrow. I mean, it's the nature of human nature. When you finally give up on the last piece of information you thought was going to be positive and it's not, then that's your low. Like when everybody is sold, that's your low. So I think we were at least on corn. This is specifically on corn, Casey. I did not expect a positive soybean report, and we didn't get one. I was not expecting a positive wheat report, and we didn't get one. So I want to be very, very clear that I was not expecting those two markets to see anything good in this report, and they did not see it. I'm just flabbergasted that the USDA can possibly, with a straight face, put out that kind of information when I think it's pretty obvious by anyone that is a reasonable purveyor of what is taking place can understand and suggest that that's not likely going to be the right number. And so that's where we're at. The market is what it is. It's extremely unfortunate, short term for producers. But eventually the market will get the fundamentals right. And I do believe that we're going to be entering a much more interesting series of weather events going forward that's going to start to shift the focus on endless supply to something that might be a little less. And so that's where we're at. I'm not, I guess the last thing I would say is this. For those that correctly predicted the USDA report, good job. But that's not important. It really is not important. What's really important is if the USDA is wrong and what others have been saying, including myself, are right, then selling now is absolutely the wrong thing to do. And that's really the most important decision to make, is selling today, tomorrow, the next day, the right thing to do based upon this piece of information. That, at the end of the day, that's really the decision. If you didn't sell before the report, you can't go back. And I don't believe, and we've made these recommendations on your show many, many times before, when we've been in these dire times, these times of no hope, no future, it's never going up again. And I don't think this is a very good time to be selling corn unless you absolutely, positively don't have a choice but to sell right now. And if you have to sell, then I don't know what else to say. But if you have a decision to make, selling now, in my opinion, with what I'm seeing going forward, is not in your best interest. And I believe in the next 3 months and the next 6 months and the next 9 months, anyone that sells post this report, I believe will feel as silly as the bulls feel right now. And that's where I feel. That's where I stand.
Right on. Okay, Sean. Good place to stop. Folks want to reach out to you, get more information on what you know at Hackett Financial. What's the easiest way to do that?
Our website is Hackett, Hackett, advisors.com. We also have a Twitter page at FairDex11, LinkedIn page. In fact, we just posted actually a Twitter of one of your interviews, Casey, that we just did that was really, really outstanding. And I would highly encourage everyone to listen to that if they haven't already done so.
Right on. Well, Sean, I appreciate you being on the podcast. We'll catch you again next time.
Sounds good, Casey. Thanks so much.
All right. Stay tuned for more Moving Iron podcasts after these messages.
Well, there they are, mocking you.
See you next year, loser.
That weedy area that's got you thinking, man, I hate that spot. Wish I'd sprayed better. Get the last laugh with a sprayer upgrade from John Deere. Precision upgrades that can increase your sprayer's performance, like ExactApply, advanced nozzles to give you more control at more speeds. It's just one of the many precision upgrades you'll find at johndeere.com. Now, let's see who's laughing.
All right, welcome back to Moving Iron Podcast. Got Aaron Sindel back on site. What's happening in the market, Aaron? How you doing today, bud?
I am terrific, my man.
Right on, right on. How's the how's the football right now? I think you watched a lot of games over the weekend. Did you get
Yes. I did not watch any of the NFL games because my team's got a first round bye, so we just took it easy this weekend. No, the college playoffs, man.
Oh, I'll tell you what, it was
Two good games. That Kurt Signetti, everybody on earth, I don't care what business you're in, do what he does.
Yeah, he just wins. Googling.
That's right, baby. Just Google. No, man, Indiana is a buzz saw.
You know what I like about Indiana?
They're complete. There's no BS.
Yeah.
Huh?
They're a complete football team.
Yeah.
They don't make mistakes.
Nope.
They capitalize on everybody else's mistakes, and they have an amazing offensive line.
Yes.
Their offensive line is just awesome.
Did you shed a tear at the Rose Bowl?
No, dude, I don't think I've ever watched that before. Where the any bowl game for that matter, the MVP was a center of all people too. Not even.
He was.
Yeah.
Right.
Because usually tackles are like the closest thing that offensive team gets to a sexy position player. You know what I mean? But
because thanks to Joe Theismann, left tackle's the second most important draft pick.
Right. Yeah. You watch that game, and when they came out in that first play with that pick six, I was like, all right, I'll give you that one. That's a lot of game left to go. And then I forgot who they played now.
Oregon.
Oregon. They come down and score right away. Like, oh, it's going to be one of those games. It's going to be a back and forth thing. Yeah. They fumbled the ball 3 times, or they had 3 turnovers, a pick six plus 2 fumbles, and they scored on all of them. And that kind of reminded me of that thing where Pat McAfee was at the NFL draft one year, and he comes out and says, most of you probably don't know me because I'm a punter, but whatever city they were in, when we would come here, I didn't punt very much. And then he would say, that made me laugh because that punter punted like 3 or 4 times the whole game, if even that many times.
Right.
And this Oregon just couldn't. Every time Oregon made a mistake, there was Indiana to pounce on.
Oh, yeah. The biggest thing, my son and I were working on his pickup in the shop listening to it, and we were sitting there, we were wiring up a light bar on his pickup, and was laying there under the pickup, and pretty soon you're like, wait a minute, what the hell's the score? I'm like, is it like 50-7? And he's like, it's pretty bad, I think, because we heard the back and forth right away, and then we had to run somewhere, and then we get back, and we listened to the Indiana call, of course, on the radio, and it's like, what is going on? Like, wow, beat down.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
And
I know, man.
Years back.
This is one of those deals where I just from
Michael Irvin himself has willed the U back all on his own
he
in
really
the
has.
last 25 years.
Yeah, he really has. And you watch like Ray Lewis on the sideline, the single most intense human being I think I've ever. Of all the
And
NFL football players, he's just like so intense about everything he does.
Lewis is trying to calm Irvin down. Like,
I know,
okay,
right?
Okay,
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah, no, he was. You know, it's the cool thing about this is you have a school like Indiana, which I guess kind of shows you what transfer portal, NIL, those kind of things can do for you. Whereas, you know, to Indiana's credit, it's not like they went out and got a bunch of 4- and 5-star guys out of the portal.
No, they got a bunch of FCS guys.
Yeah, and paid them. You know, have a $35 million thing. They just got a bunch of dudes. You know what I mean? And they just got after it. But so it's kind of cool to see that. You know, first Heisman Trophy champion, first Big Ten championship since 1962 or whatever. And you know, here they're on the verge of they're playing for the first time ever in a national championship game. So they're checking a lot of boxes this year.
Oh, yeah.
But as a child of the 80s, man, seeing the U back the way it was, you know what I mean? It's like, it's cool. It's just like one of those things, you know? It's just like that whole thing of, man, we got, as long as I get to see some of them doing those if they make a sack, you know, or score touchdowns, the dances, if they can bring the dances back, that'd be great.
Yeah.
But
I was just going to say the game has changed enough that we're only going to get about 2/3 of that old swagger back because the rest is illegal.
right. Well, that's one thing too. Like, you know, they've kind of let the whole end zone celebration thing go, right? Like
Right.
You can just do that now. So what used to be a penalty, you know, celebrating the end zone. Now, I mean, some of these celebrations in the end zone now, I'm like, all right, fellas, all right.
Yeah. Are we done?
Let's skip back to the sideline. And,
Why?
you know,
Why is the
Yeah.
backup holder in the end zone? What did he do?
yeah, but you got watching these things happen. So it's going to be great. Monday night's going to be awesome to watch what happens there and
Yeah.
how those things play out. I don't know who to cheer for. I mean, I want as much as I want Miami to win, I also want Indiana to win because of where this. You took the most. It's like for complete lack of a better acronym. Not acronym. Something to compare it to. Analogy. That's what I'm looking for. Kurt Signetti did what Bill Snyder did over like a 15-year period in 2 seasons. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, I mean, it's like it's cool to watch. Let's watch how that rolls, but it's going to be. It's very. And the thing about it is, now that they're winning like this, I always knew Indiana had a good business school, but man, the amount of people that are like big business owners that are.
Yeah, I didn't know Cuban went to IU.
I didn't know that either. So like the billionaires that are associated
Solves the NIL problem,
okay, well,
I
let's just
guess.
go ahead and we'll just make this thing. We'll keep rolling on this deal,
Right.
But I think the way Signetti does it, though, he does it really well. He just goes and watches tape, and if you're productive, and he thinks he can mold you into what he wants you to be,
Yep.
you know, we're gonna go out and we're gonna get that kid. We're gonna win, which sounds very Nick Saban approach to what he's doing in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but Nick, here's the difference. Kurt's truly looking at the player. Nick's looking at the players within the 4s and 5s.
That's because he had access to those guys.
I know, but I'm just saying, as far as the not that Lord Saban's going to hear this, but as far as true talent evaluator, I'd give it to Signetti because how hard is it to pick? Well, there's plenty of busts in the 5-star world, but it's like I want a nice pickup. Well, all we have is Denali's. But I need cloth. I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Well, that too. I mean, that's a big part of that too. I mean, if you think about how all that stuff plays out, when you're looking at the kids that come through and they're looking at like
the black running back there. He was not even, he was like a 0-star.
Yeah.
Right? He wasn't on anybody's radar because he was too short.
Yep.
Right? Good thing he didn't say that about Barry Sanders, because, I mean, here's a guy that's been fantastic the whole time he's been there.
At some point, some scout said about Barry Sanders, he dances around too much. Doesn't hit
I'm
the
sure.
hole.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
He doesn't hit the hole very hard.
He's the only guy that, I might lose 5 on this one, but I'll get 15 on the next. So I average out to 10. You know what I mean? So,
On my way to a 320 day.
that's right. Yeah, that's right. So it's going to be interesting to watch it play out. NFL
Indiana by 17.
I think you're probably right. I mean, they're just fundamentally sound. The cool thing about this, though, too, which, back when we were growing up, there was the Hayden Fox coaching tree and all that stuff, all
Hayden
the
Fry.
things. Or Hayden Fry, I mean.
Hayden Fox is
Yeah.
actually the made-up coach on Coach.
That's fine. I watched an episode of that earlier today. That's why I said that. But
Great show,
we were-
by the way. Great
Yeah.
show.
we were it's the same thing too right now. If you look at
Oh, wow.
coaches up through Alabama and where they're at right now, I mean, it shows something. So it's going to be cool to watch because again, two coaches that coached in the same program. So.
Guess who is Saban's second boss in coaching?
Who?
Kurt Signetti's dad.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yep. No joke.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Well, it's going to be interesting to watch it play out. NFL wise, it's 85 Bears all over again. 85 Bears, 85 Patriots. Hopefully the score's not the same. But it's going to be, that's where it's at.
No. The 10th anniversary of the 2015 Broncos.
Yeah.
No
A lot
flies,
of anniversaries.
baby.
A lot of anniversaries out there. So,
Yep.
and those anniversaries are there to remember what was. That's
What was.
That's what you do.
Like a string of 9 AFC West championships. A thing
That's
that
right.
was. A thing
that
of
was.
the past.
Everybody has a glimmer.
Like a
Everybody
tight
has
end
a
that
glimmer.
wanted to chase pop stardom instead of accolades on the field.
This was funny. I watched this video the other day.
If anybody wonders if, well, I better not say that on a podcast. I was going to say they're a female introduced into your life and then look at Travis Kelce's production. Every high school athlete, come here, look at this.
Yeah. So that the tackle that I played for the Chiefs, Tooney.
Yeah.
I can't remember his first name. Anyway, there was a guy that
Looney?
Yeah.
Isn't it Looney?
No, it's Tooney. But he played for the Patriots, the Chiefs, and he played for the Bears. And every year, all the years that he showed up were years that were like the previous year. They kind of struggled a little bit, and then they went and won a Super Bowl, and then they had to go on a run. Then he gets to Kansas City, they struggle a little bit, wins, go on a run, and now he's at the Bears now, and they struggle a little bit. Now they're going on a run. The guy was like, "This is the single biggest cultural asset that any team's ever had in the NFL that nobody talks about." I was like, "That's a bit of a stretch." It's a lot of coincidences there, but yeah. That's fine.
I saw that it was like a punter or some third string guy once. They're like, this guy has like 9 rings.
Yeah. Got nine rings that no one knows.
Yep.
All right, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the marketplace. Now, I think one of the things we need to address as we kind of start heading into the time frame that we're in is auction value and how auction value shapes up, and then how auction value influences retail value. So if you're looking at
Correlation to real life.
that's right, there is a strong correlation there. So one thing I've heard a lot of people talk about on other podcasts and in chat rooms and X comments and all this other stuff, right?
Hey,
All
real
these things-
quick.
Yeah.
Real quick. When you took your DeLorean back to 05 to hang out in those chat rooms, what else was going on back in the day?
A lot of crazy stuff. But you have, I think the part of that people need to understand is that, yes, auction value right now, if you look at auction value compared to what a new one is, it seems like it is a catastrophic failure, right? And although it is a lot of money, the percentages have not changed, right?
No.
If you go back and look at, and you do the math on all this stuff, and you go back and look, I will tell you something right now. I get tired of people going out to websites and pulling up a piece of equipment and saying like, "Oh, this is $1 million, whatever." Right? Well, that's what the list price is, but that's not the price anyone's buying it for.
Right.
And if you're a farmer and you're saying that, you know that's accurate too, right? So just FYI, right? So anyway, if you go back and look at what you're actually buying a piece of equipment for comparatively to what the auction value is, those percentages haven't changed much. They're within a 2 or 3 percentage points of where they're of historic averages, right? And they're getting tighter as time goes by, right? And that's what happens now. If you go back 2 years ago, or even go back to 24 when it was full-fledged action stuff, and even late 23 when it was really, really bad in the auction marketplace, absolutely. That span between what auction value was and what it was greater. And it always is during a downturn. And that's exactly what you see happen. And we saw that in 2013, 2014 timeframe there. We saw the same thing again in, if you go back to look at like 2005, 2004 timeframe, like those timeframes all had huge catastrophic dumps. 98, 99, 2000, you go back and look at those time frames, those were huge dumps in the marketplace, brought the value down, but then they came back up, and we just kind of kept moving on. Typical depreciation, you see it if you take a 1-year-old piece of equipment to an auction, you're going to see somewhere between 25 and 30% reduction. If you take a 2-year-old piece to an auction, you're going to see somewhere between 35 and 40% reduction. Now, the retail value on that side is going to be a little bit higher just because of all the stuff that comes along with that. But what's hard to understand, it's hard to get your mind wrapped around now, is what we used to be talking about were tens of thousands of dollars at an auction loss compared to a new piece. Now we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I get it. That's a big number to overcome when you're looking at depreciation and those kind of things on the balance sheet and how that works across your bushels and acres and everything else that you're associated with that. That's a big pill to swallow. And I get that. And I'm not trying to sugarcoat it here saying that, oh, well, you should just be out, just gumdrops and candy canes because it's the same percentage. What I'm getting at is what this is doing is it's changing the way people are going to buy equipment.
Right.
And the amount of new equipment that comes back to the marketplace, which creates 1 and 2-year-old equipment, which creates 3 and 5-year-old equipment, which creates 6 to 10, so on and so forth down the line, that's going to dramatically change. I think the top part of the funnel, as we watch things go through, there's not going to be that big fight over 1 to 2-year-old stuff that we've seen in the past. The real battleground right now is going to be that 3 to 5-year-old stuff that people are going to be fighting over. The 6 to 10-year-old stuff, in my opinion, is going to be a lot more, for lack of a better term that I can come up with, there's going to be a lot of off the farm sales and that stuff. There's going to be a lot of auction stuff and that stuff. There's going to be a lot of retail stuff and that stuff too. But those numbers are going to be pretty fluid with each other. You're not going to see a $50,000 something, $100,000 something on the dealership, and it's going to bring $30,000 or $40,000 at the auction. You're going to see if it's at $100,000 on the retail side of it, it's going to be somewhere between 98 and 101,000 at the auction. And it's going to be the same thing on the on-farm sale stuff too, like Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, so on and so forth. Those numbers are going to be very static as far as what you see. Like, there's no one place that's going to get more than another. I mean, maybe a little bit here and there, but it's not going to be these huge swings in the market. So as I'm watching this, I see this limited amount of equipment coming off the marketplace. And I'm also watching this back end of this 6 to 10-year-old stuff that is going to be as attractive for sale as the stuff that's in the 3 to 5 bucket. But that 3 to 5 bucket is going to generate guys are going to come buy that, and they're going to be trading in that stuff behind it. And it's going to create a different market than I think we're used to. And to me, it's the new normal as we move through 26 into the 2030s.
Yeah, to a point, I agree with that for sure. Real quick, that 6 to 10, I completely agree. Whether you're dealer, auction, private party, you're kind of splitting hairs as far as what it's worth. All three markets, that thing has pretty much the same number on it. So
yeah.
that's where that's heading. So that's 100% right. The percentage thing, here's a good way to look at it. Combines used to be 300. Go to an auction, lose 100. That's a third, right?
Yeah.
Combines 450. Go to auction, you lose 150. That's a third. But your third gained 50%.
Right.
So
that's the hard part to swallow.
Right. Looking at it with those easy numbers right there, that's a beautiful way to shine light on it and go, ooh. So it is the same. It's the same as it was, but it just hurts a lot more than it used to.
Yeah, you get kicked twice with that.
Right.
And then you get a punch in the face.
As far as explain some more on that the new marketplace 26 and forward with the you're saying, and I'm trying to think of the right words here. A renewed vigor for the 6 to 10, like there'll be more excitement and more focus in the marketplace on that segment moving forward than there has been. And is that just because the 1 to 5 has shrunk down so much that this is what we have left to deal with? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, because you look at, so just if we go back and look at the 1-year-old stuff that's on the marketplace right now,
right?
I'll pick on combines, right. If you go back and look at 1-year-old combines right now, there's something like 850 used combines on the marketplace, 1-year-old used combines, all makes, all models, right? So everything from a Gleaner all the way through an X9, under X9 combine. I mean, so all those brands, there's 850 of them. You jump down to 2-year-old combines, and I got to go back and look, but I think it's something like 2,500, if I remember right, of those machines on the marketplace. If you go back and look at
3 times more.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. So
Right.
if you go back and look at, here we go. So last time I pulled these numbers, here we go. Last time I pulled these numbers, okay, there's 842 1-year-old combines. This would have been as of the 7th of the month of January. There's 842 combines on the market, 1,633 2-year-old combines, 3,491 3 to 5-year-old combines, 1,875 6 to 10-year-old combines, and 2,700 10 plus year old combines. So there's about 10,500 combines on the marketplace, right? If you go back up and look where that was at in December 18th, there was something like the 5-year-old stuff. There were 496 combines taken off the marketplace, 64 1-year-old combines added, 30 2-year-old combines added. The 6 to 10-year-old combines jumped up 258, and the 10-plus-year-old combines jumped up 165.
So there's that market.
Right, exactly. So now when you're looking at the amount of 1-year-old equipment, which is going to feed, obviously, the 2-year-old marketplace and the 3 to 5-year-old marketplace, as those numbers keep shrinking, and because like right now, like even I don't want to say like we had some banner corn market right now that number would change, because I don't think it would. I think you're going to see people when you're looking at your farm equipment, the equipment on your farm. My opinion of it is that the stuff that you have to keep updated is the stuff that has a lot of wear parts on it, right? Like you have to have some plan in place that's going to, account for wear items, the different functionalities and efficiencies and those kind of things that come into play. Whereas like a tractor, you can take a tractor and run a tractor for a long time. You're not gaining anything, right? When you look at the true nuts and bolts of what's inside. There's some technological things and those kind of things. It's integrated this and integrated that. But at the end of the day, the efficiencies associated with a combine or a chopper or something like that are significantly different than the efficiencies you get from a tractor, right?
For sure.
So those things, we start looking at a combine, how long are you going to run it and before you start looking at some really big repairs, right? How long is that going to be, right? Are you good with that? Are you going to do the repairs yourself? Like what's your plan when you start looking at a combine, right? The other side of that is when you start working your way through the value of proposition of a combine is probably one of the machines that takes the biggest kick in the pants on that first year than any other piece of equipment does, right? But then the second year that levels off a little bit. The third year it even levels off even more, and you're at a more of a level. Like the depreciation the first year compared to the third year's.
For sure.
It's like it goes from a full bore open up the floodgates to, hey, we're just got a little trickle now in the creek. And that's really what it looks like.
Yep.
My thing is, as this 1-year-old market continues to stay small, it's going to put pressure on this, the 2-year-old stuff, the 3 to 5-year-old stuff, the 6 to 10 stuff. Because there's going to be less stuff coming into the marketplace.
Yeah.
And sooner or later, you're going to have this, like right now, we've kind of got this diamond shape kind of bulge in the marketplace where you've got a little bit at the top, a little bit at the bottom, but you got this big, thick middle place in the middle right here, right? Well, that's going to continue to shrink. And sooner or later, you're going to get something like this. And that's going to an hourglass kind of approach to it. You're going to get this change in the marketplace, and I don't see that changing much, right? As we look through, because again, it goes back to the cost of new equipment, the cost of 1-year-old equipment, and what does that look like? I will say this: as we go through the marketplace right now, and we can argue that, hey, this was a depressed market, so these auction values were under pressure, but I don't think so, right? We kind of the marketplace put in what the buying public is willing to pay for something, right?
Right.
We're not willing to pay more than $600,000 for $650 on something, right? On a used piece of equipment, on a combine or a big 4-wheel drive or something like that. We're not really willing to pay more than about $185,000 to $175,000 on a 1 or 2-year-old loader tractor. We're not really thinking more than $350 to $400 on a 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 300 plus horsepower ish row crop tractor. Like those kind of ceilings have been put in, and they've stayed that way. They've been that way for 2.5, 3 years, right?
Yep.
And so again, I don't think it goes back to that what you and I have talked about before we started doing this podcast. Like, at what point is the used buyer going to come in and buy that used piece of equipment? But so that you're not just repricing that when it comes back in, so that the same guy that's buying the new one can afford the used one, right? There's an equilibrium there that you got to figure out. And I think we set that in there. So as you're looking at this stuff now, that's auction value, right? Retail value is a little bit different, right? There's a premium of auction price if you're buying something from a dealership, all right? And that the premium is associated with if the engine blows up, hopefully your dealership is going to help you through that situation, right? However they help you through that. If the engine blows up at the auction, after you buy it from the auction, they're going to say, you want to put it back on the auction? Is that what we're getting at? Is that what you want to do? That's I don't understand what you're asking me for here right now. Like that's how that situation works. So there's a little bit of a premium there. Now, it's not 50%, right? It's 25, 30%. It's 10 or 15%. I mean, it's wildly, but it's not like I'm saying that where there's a huge premium that's out there. As you watch this roll through, I just don't see where there is a big opportunity for, we're going to go out and sell, 6,000 1-year or brand new combines this year. Like, I don't see that happening, right? We're not going to go out and sell 8,500 300 cross row crop tractors, right? if any market is an indicator of this, the cattle market, with the amount of money that's in the cattle market right now, we should not have any loader tractors anywhere to be found.
Right.
But that's been a point of contention for a lot of dealerships, the amount of loader tractors that are on the marketplace, whether we're talking $50,000 loader tractors or $200,000 loader tractors, right?
For sure.
That's been a point of contention because there's not one segment of those machines that someone can point at and say, yep, this is on fire. Now, there's some stuff out there you watch sell. That's the oddity, that the 750 hour 7420, that
Right.
brought, I mean, like, everyone's going to go out and try to jump on that one. But the rank and file, piece of equipment that's out there, you're not seeing that, right?
No.
So that brings me back to, on the row crop side, the farming side, that's a little bit different, right? Because like we talked about earlier, there's those combines and whatnot that are out there that you have to keep updated, right? Because if you fall behind the update curve on some of these machines, it's too expensive to get back to it, and you're kind of stuck in a rut there a little bit. A little bit different animal, right? But again, if the market gets hot again, you're going to see your typical run-on tractors, right? You always see that. That's not anything different, right? You're going to see those kind of things. And I think this time around you'll see a run on combines, because if you look at the age of the U.S. farming fleet, it's as old as it's ever been, right?
Yeah.
It's older now than it was pre-COVID, and they were talking about, we're kind of starting to get this thing worked through a little bit, but now we're kind of back on the other side of that curve. But as you watch things pull through, that's why I don't think 26, 27, 28 really make a big difference in the amount of new stuff that gets sold. If we roll to 2030, I think we're setting at a new, quote unquote, new normal of what the flow of used equipment looks like. And to me, it feels a lot like the construction marketplace, right? You sell a new one, and you get a couple trades in there, first and second generation trades, and you kind of move on from there.
We're to your point of 6, 7, 8 not being any change. I think what happened from late 21 to early 23, essentially 3 years of stuff showing up at once. That was we've been in glut markets before. Okay.
Wow,
there was
that's unprecedented.
The green combine lease program of the 90s that made 9600s just plummet because they were all over and you could not give them away. And then we had 10, 11, 12, and 13. And then we spent 14, 15, 16 going, it's a 12. Didn't matter. Planter, tractor, combine. It's a 12. Like, oh, man.
Yeah.
To where we don't have – we kind of do. I mean, there's the 22 and 13 or 22 and 23 or 12 and 13 in a sense for the marketplace. But everything was never – we've never dealt with that 3 years at once. And that is such a just cartoon analogy, frying pan to the head of, wow, like catch your breath and now what? And I think that was such a market disruptor, if you will, that there is no such thing as any semblance of normal other than what today is.
Mm-hmm.
Which goes along with what you're saying. I mean, this isn't what did we do 10 years ago, because the same thing will work. This is what do we do tomorrow to make sure it wasn't yesterday.
Right. Well, and also, too, 3 things that were totally different than what we saw coming out of 2012, right? So coming out of 2012, obviously, you saw a decrease in crop prices, right? We go from whatever it was, $8 corn,
right,
$7 corn, or whatever it was, down to, you get back into the high 3s, low 4s, and that changed the marketplace. That was the big disruptor there. The other disruptor was the price of equipment I mean, obviously people talked about the price of equipment. Oh my God, it's just where's the stop?
But it didn't jump like it did now.
But it didn't jump like it did, right? And you still had significantly lower interest rates.
Yeah.
Right? This one happens. You have kind of a trifecta hit, right? You've got low quality prices come out of nowhere, and you could throw in the amount of government payments and stuff like that were coming into the money that was coming into the marketplace via COVID payments and whatnot. Right? That was a huge chunk of that. So those two things that were there,
CFAP, PPP, and all that.
Yeah, all that stuff. And then you've got you peak out at the top of the interest rate marketplace, so the interest rates are really high, and then you throw in the price of equipment and what that does to you, right? So all of a sudden you have this and a huge supply glut. So now you've got this like overwhelming, just everything that could go against you is going against you, and it's just that set a table for a complete reset. And I think that's where we're at here in 26. 26 is we've reset. Now we're working our way back through it. But I think when we come back out on the other side of this, I know you and I disagree on this, but when you come back on the other side of this, my biggest fear for the used equipment marketplace isn't necessarily do we have buyers for the used equipment. It is what are people doing with the equipment that they have, right? There could be 10 planters in the marketplace, and that could be a glut because everyone decides to upgrade their planters, right? Or we could have X number of sprayers on the market. It's too many because a third of the population decide they're going to upgrade their sprayers, right? I mean, it's like those kind of things start playing in the mix where, yeah, it looks like low numbers comparatively what we're used to, but at some point in time, is the juice worth the squeeze when you start looking at how all those things come together? And I think that's a struggle that we got to figure out as we push our way through this.
No, I get that 100%.
Right on. All right, man, probably a good place to stop. Aaron, folks want some High Plains Wholesales deal. What's the best way to do that?
You can catch High Plains Wholesale on Facebook, has a Facebook page and a TikTok. And you can catch me, Aaron Fintel, on all the socials, Facebook, X, LinkedIn, whatever else is out there. Best way, call me or text me, 308-760-1193.
Right on. Well, Casey Seymour, find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can see the audio, or you can hear the audio version of this over at AgWeb, and they have a podcast space so you can go see everything. Plus, you can go to anywhere that has podcasts, and you can listen to it there as well. You can go to the Farm Journal YouTube page, and you can see the video version that's there as well. So I want to thank Greg Machinier, Pete Peterson, Sean Hackett, and Aaron Fennell for being on this edition of our podcast. So with that, I'm Casey Seymour. Let's go be smart, folks.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next week. And remember, Moving Iron is available on Farm Journal's YouTube channel and anywhere podcasts are found. So until next time, let's move some iron.